tell me that they have nothing. And when we look under the hood, what we find is that they have homes, they have insurance, they have, in some occasions, a 401k, all of which are assets that could be passed to the next generation.
Yeah, I think that we oftentimes don't quite know what our assets are and what are
Yes.
some of the things that we can actually pass down
Yes.
to others and tools to do that.
Yes.
I think to that end, on a personal note, my father passed away when I was 16, and I recognized immediately how big of a problem this was because we didn't have anything for him to pass down to us or a tool to do that. So we had
Right.
life insurance, we had homes, cars, and even money that was left, but no real tool to navigate that at 16 years old. So what are some of the tools that you would suggest that we have here in this earthly realm to make sure that the next generation is set up appropriately?
Yes, and I'm sorry that happened to you, but I'm glad you bring it up because I think it's an important point. And one thing I'd like to add as an extension of what you can pass is actually education and knowledge and financial literacy. And so that is powerful. It's intellectual property. It's something that is intangible, but that can have a tremendous impact and again, create an advantage or opportunity for the second generation. So to your question, a few things are important. I would say the first one is that you take inventory of what you have and that you have transparent conversations with those around you, even if it's difficult. Something I've observed is that oftentimes we may find it hard to trust other people with our own personal wealth information. That said, it's also impossible then to get help if you don't ask and if you're not being honest either with yourself or with others about your situation. I think that one's a really hard one.
It's difficult.
Because it requires a level of trust.
Transparency.
It does. And I also think there's a lot of fear or potentially fear of judgment that comes with being transparent. Some of us don't feel like we're where we are supposed to be or where we should be. But I would tell you, oftentimes when I have conversations with people, I'm actually surprised by how much they do have. I think it really is a matter of taking that first step out and trying to get comfortable around the conversation of money and going from there.
So I'll double back because I think we've said something a couple times, but I want to be really clear about it, right?
Yeah.
So at what dollar level
Yes.
should I start having those conversations about my wealth and getting the education and talking to my children, my siblings, my family members? What's the dollar amount? Is there a minimum?
There's no minimum. If you have a credit card, if you have a bank account, if you've ever worked a job and have a 401k, this conversation is for you. If you have children, this conversation is for you. Because as we just discussed, education is a component of what you can pass along. And so all of your habits, whether or not you are aware of them or not, you're passing them. And so it's important to be intentional. And to be intentional, you first have to, again, take inventory. What is it that reminds you, or when's the first time you got exposed to money? What was money like in your household growing up? Those types of questions really influence for your entire life how you interact and engage, for better or for worse.
So by trade, I'm an accountant, and what I often find is that people want to give me a little bit. They want me to focus on this one little thing that they're telling me
solve
about,
this
right?
problem.
Just
this
solve
one
this,
problem.
just X, that's it. I want you to solve X like it's algebra, right? But life is a lot more complicated than that.
It is.
So I would ask you, what is the nature of the conversations we should be having with a wealth planner, a financial advisor? What should we leave out? What should we not tell you?
Yeah, this is a funny one. I have a few older clients that I work with, and I was having a conversation, we were talking about their budget. And I also work with her son. And so the client said, I need some more money from my son. And I said, we have $1 million in this account. You spend $4,000 a month. I don't know why you need any more money. And she said to me, well, I have a lot of expenses that I don't tell you about. I said, okay.
How's that work?
Tell me more about that. Tell me about these expenses. And I have a lot of plans that I haven't shared with you. Okay, well, look, like we said, trust is a big piece of this component. And for all of us in this room, I would encourage you to be as open and as honest as you can be with your accountant and financial advisor, because that's the only way that they're going to give you appropriate advice. And
you gotta be careful because you end up giving bad advice, right? If you don't have the full landscape.
You can. You'll give the wrong advice for the wrong person with a different situation. Everything that we do is custom.
Yeah.
There's no one size fits all for this type of work. And that you can be surprised at the nuances. Like it goes down to the dollar amount. I have my colleague in the audience here, and he and I both know how much changing your budget by $2,000 a month can have a long-term impact on your overall financial picture. And so even the smallest of details are important to disclose.
Yeah. What other dynamics, if any, do you see kind of creeping around out there as trends? What are we not talking about? What are we avoiding here?
Oh, okay. Yes, what are we avoiding? Something I've been seeing lately, I don't know how common this is, but I'll mention it in case it resonates or helps anyone here in the audience, is I've had clients who don't know how much money they have. So they'll say, I have a lot of accounts. I maybe have a 401k, I maybe have a checking account, a savings account here. Oh, I have this rollover IRA from this opportunity. I have a life insurance I have life insurance, but I don't know the net sum of all of that. And then I'll say to them, okay, that's okay. We can sit down, put everything together, figure it out. How much do you spend a month? How much do you spend a year? Well, I think I spend this. It's about this. And oftentimes when we have that conversation, the number is way off.
Right.
I think, what is it? If you can't, what is it? You can't measure it.
You can't manage it.
You can't manage it.
Yeah.
And so I would say that that's the case with your money. If you don't know how much you have and you don't know how much you're spending, at the end of the day, it will be really tough for you or for anyone else to come up with an appropriate plan.
In your perspective, how do we transfer wealth beyond just the education and the conversation? How do we actually do it?
I love this question. I love this question. So there are a few things that everyone needs to have, and one of those very few things is a will. So for everyone who's here thinking, I don't have any assets, I don't need a will, I would encourage you to change your point of view. The way you would think about a will isn't just to transfer significant assets. No, no, no. It's actually just a description of what you would like to happen to anything that you've had control over during your lifetime. Whether that's your car, whether that's artwork, whether it's a watch from your grandparents, whatever that might be. This document articulates, once you have left this earth, what should happen to those items. And why is it important? It's important because we're all human and because families tend to be dysfunctional.
Absolutely.
And so when it comes down to it, what you don't want is for there to be more chaos and confusion after you pass. And that's unfortunately what tends to occur.
Yeah, I've seen a lot lately, these, funeral planners or last wish planners. And that's an interesting space. But what I have found is a lot more people started doing that than have actually started to plan what to do with their assets. So it's a little bit concerning for me.
Yes. Has anyone seen the predatory commercials? There's two black women, older black women, younger black women, and they're talking about insurance to pay for their funeral. I don't know if anyone's seen this, but there is a commercial. You've seen it. I see people shaking their heads. There's a commercial that is literally targeting our community, acknowledging that oftentimes we don't think that we have anything and therefore don't have a will or have a plan. And they're advertising a product where you can pay, similar to insurance, to ensure that you have up to, I think it's $30,000 for funeral expenses. That said, there are many other, way more efficient ways to take care and plan for your passing than that. So I just wanted to flag that because I'm seeing it and growing increasingly concerned about the idea of planning for a funeral, but not planning while you're here and to pass on assets to your children. The fact is that the IRS is all of our business partners. And so if you don't plan, it's not that nothing will happen.
Something's happening.
Something will happen, and the IRS will come in and take a piece of it.
And so
as opposed to your family or charity.
You took me right to my next question, which is why I love doing panels with you. What is the tax implication? And neither of us are giving anybody tax advice or specific situations, but at a high level, what are some of the possible tax implications of not having a plan?
Yeah, I mean, pay 50% in estate tax to leave something. So I have clients who often give their parents money, very common in our community. Okay, I had a client who gave his mother $1 million. Mother has no will, no trust in place. Today, if she were to pass, what would happen? This money, in order to go right back to him, would be taxed on a number of different levels, totaling about 50%. Estate tax is a very, very serious thing. And so, in order to avoid that, in order to be efficient, and actually just pass on what you've earned and worked hard for, or someone has earned and worked hard for, you gotta have a plan.
And I just add a little extra sauce to that. In most cases, the money was already taxed when you, the first person, received it, right?
Yes.
So you have to remember that it was taxed as income to the first individual, who passed it to the second individual, who then is gonna get taxed again. Whether it goes back to the first or to someone else, we're paying that tax over and over again in our community. And if you think about what that wealth loss is,
oh my gosh,
with no track, no trace, with what other things that we could be doing. We see all these businesses out here that need our help. We could solve some of our own problems if we were more intentional about what we were doing to plan this out.
It's scary. You know, I see people get nervous, and I understand. There's a lot of superstition around talking about your own death, but at the end of the day, the tax code is what we're all governed by, and so whatever you need to work through that, I would encourage you to spend the time and work through it.
Yeah, and I'll add one more thing, that the tax code is the tax code, and the more time you spend trying to cheat the tax code instead of learning the tax code, you're just kind of working backwards. How do we partner with the best types of partners for us as it relates to wealth planners or advisors? Because there's bankers, there's advisors. Like, what does that look like in the general scheme? How do we decide what the best partnerships are for us?
Right. So when I think about a really solid team, it has 3 legs of a stool. The first is an accountant, okay? Because at the end of the day, the tax code, again, is what governs us. And so if you don't understand or have a sense of how to optimize the taxes that you pay, you're really missing out on a big piece of the picture. You will save more in taxes than you will likely ever make investing in stocks and bonds. It's just simple math, okay? The second leg of that stool is a trust and estate attorney. So someone who can draft that will that we were just describing, right? And someone who can look at your life, look at your balance sheet or description of everything that you own, and then advise you on what other structures, like a trust, would be appropriate for you and your circumstances. The third, and this is really in conjunction with the T&E and accountant, is a wealth advisor, a financial advisor, someone who can help you think about debt management, someone who can help you think about cash flow and spending and saving, and someone who can also, honestly, give you peace of mind. Because I see so many people who are so worried. They are riddled with worry. And when we sit down and we talk about the plan, I've had people say, oh, I have enough money to do everything I need to do. It's like, yes, ma'am, you do. And what a blessing that is. But sometimes we're just unaware.
And sometimes you're very close. You know, you don't even quite realize how close you are, just making this one small change, you know, $1,000 a month or something towards your retirement could really make a huge shift. So serious question.
Sure.
Serious.
Okay.
So I've been on Instagram, and I've seen a lot of really savvy Instagram wealth advisors, and I use savvy loosely. So should I just go take the things that I see in these captions and run with it? Like, they're giving me these 1 by 1, 2, 3 steps to go set up and trust. And, you know, they said I could put my baby in a trust. What are your thoughts on the Instagram trust accountants and Instagram trust lawyers and wealth advisors?
I love the democratization of information. I think it's amazing that there is much more now available to all of us than there has been in the past. That said, it's really important that you get advice that's relevant to you. And it's really hard on Instagram to do that, because what they're offering is a generic picture, generic advice that maybe works for them, but may or may not work for you. And then the other kind of troubling thing is that sometimes people aren't licensed. I'm licensed to do what I do. I have 3 licenses. I've been at the firm I'm with for about 9 years now. That's what enables me to give financial advice to individuals. if someone is giving you advice and doesn't have the right licenses or background, I would just double check that before you take it.
Yeah. We got some clear
Oh,
participation
wow.
on that one. You liked it. I appreciate it too.
Thank you.
Trust me. So I would ask if you had like a thing that you would want to share with the audience about kind of a first step to take or an important step to take that maybe people aren't taking right now.
Yeah.
What would that be? What does that look like that they can start to do to really get themselves prepared to transition wealth to their family members or next generations? What do you think they start?
Yeah. Can I do two things?
You can give as many as you like.
Okay. Because I think these two things go well together. Okay. You can't really have one without the other. The first is track your spending. I track my spending, and let me tell you, when I started tracking it, I thought I was a lot more diligent than it turns out I am, okay? I have a few weaknesses. It looks like I really like to eat out and I like to shop. So I had to give myself a budget for both of those, or else I'll go overboard.
Yes.
That's just me. On the other side of that coin, please, do not go a day further if you do not know how much do you have? What are your assets? What is your house worth? What is your car worth? Look at Kelley Blue Book. Give yourself a quick picture. What is the art? What are the watches? What are the things that are important to you? What is their value? And write that down. And then I want you to, between those two pieces, meet with someone, whether it's a financial advisor or a friend. But put words around this, right?
Yeah.
If you don't communicate or share, it's really difficult to get good
Feedback.
advice, get good feedback.
Yeah.
It's really difficult.
I agree.
So please, who's gonna do that when they leave?
Please. Okay. I
Excellent.
feel like we got some
okay,
traction.
I'm gonna keep you honest on that.
We're gonna check in. I think we have everybody's email addresses.
Yeah, next year, Essence this time, I'm checking for you.
Awesome. Well, I just want to thank you, Danielle, for sharing the stage, sharing your knowledge and information. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience today before we skedaddle?
No, I just think there's a really beautiful passage in Luke that says, who goes about starting a plan but doesn't first anticipate what it will cost? Okay, building a tower is the proverb. And so just think about Luke and think about the importance of having that plan.
Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you.